Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slaying Dragons with Mike and Rob show. It's a special show here at Excalibur. Mike Fuson and joined by Rob Gauguin. And we talk about all things that you may want to hear about ITSM, not ITSM, any little topic that we think are things that our clients need to deal with. Thanks for joining me, Rob.
Oh, anytime, Mike. Always enjoy talking about ITSM.
Well, one of the things that Rob had brought up and that we got to talking a little bit about and said, hey, this would make a good Slaying Dragons episode was enterprise service management. Enterprise service management kind of came onto the scene about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, where the service management vendors that are out there started building other processes in service management. Now, for many of us in the service management space, we're like, oh wow, you guys kind of figured out what we as partners have been doing and clients have been doing now for a long while. And for those that had a more capable platform, doing HR functions in there, having another group inside the organization do what we would refer to in the IT service management space as request management. Instead of managing the requests in the mailbox, they were managing them in our IT service management platform, which seems to do request management quite well. Most of the time servicing the same base of customers that IT does, and it lent itself well to that. And then we started getting into more complex processes. Things like facilities management and project and portfolio and all of those sort of things in an effort to offer those capabilities to customers. And the world got a bit challenging, didn't it, Rob, at that point?
It certainly did. And one of the things that we noticed and we realized is that a ticket is similar to an HR case, which is similar to, really, you're just recording information about something. You're sending it to the appropriate group to get looked at or resolved or actioned, if you will. And so really, there's a lot of parallels between these tertiary sort of areas within a business, enterprise-wise, whether it's facilities or human resources, whether it's project work or various other areas you can get into. Even supplier management and onboarding and all kinds of different areas that sort of are beyond the scope of the core IT ticket, but they all follow the same route. They all follow that, ticket or case that's going forward, and then it's moving up. So when we start to look at ESM platforms as a sort of a tagline that's coming into this space, we're looking at, enterprise-wide delivering services. So it's not just IT services, it's services as a whole, enterprise-wide, whether it's in those different areas. But those processes follow very similar sort of workflow, with, the actions are slightly different. So we're starting to see different items being repurposed from the ITSM space, but we're just using different labels. So instead of using incident, or you might be using the term case or ticket, etc., but we're following that same workflow pattern. And so these platforms that are in place to help us manage IT can be used in these other areas. A work order, for example, in the facility space. So now we're starting to see platforms come out that are traditionally ITSM ticketing tools. Now they're being labeled as enterprise service management tools because we're delivering service management to the customers, whether it's an IT service, an HR service, a facility service, etc. And so now we're in this interesting time where we have platforms being called, well, we're an ESM platform, and then other ones still being, we're an ITSM platform. And where does that all sit with us? Like, what's the best approach? Because traditionally we have purpose-built software in things like asset management, or we have popular HRMS systems like Workday or PeopleSoft. What's the right way to go? Or do these all-in-one ESM solutions give me enough to take me forward, or should I be sticking with the traditional purpose-built software? Where do I go?
Yeah, and that's the confusion that we've seen come in. Well, we want the IT our core platform to do everything Microsoft Project does, for example, in project management. And there's a separation there. These platforms, while very capable, can't replace every single nuance of what a purpose-built solution does. So you can't say, well, we want it to do everything Microsoft Project does. Okay, we start to get into that conversation around, and this is the same conversation we have with any IT processes, right? What do you need it to do? What are your
That's right.
processes? Where are you? What's your level of maturity? Because
That's the
you know,
big
you
thing.
yeah, you can turn it around and say, okay, I know plenty of customers that own Microsoft, Project Server, and they're using 2% of the capabilities of the server. They're putting in project plans, and that's about it. They're not doing the other things that platform does. And those were some early conversations we had with customers when some of this early enterprise service management stuff, especially around project, came out. Was well, but we're spending X amount of dollars on Microsoft Project Server. And I remember sitting in a discussion with a group where I said, it's not that it's going to replace all of that capability. It's going to replace large portions of it, but are those the portions that you use and need? They may not be.
That's right.
There may be things that you're doing. And we had a CIO in the room with us, and the CIO said, I want a breakdown. I want to understand, because we're spending X for this project solution, which actually cost me more than my IT service management platform. And the particular platform they had, they could build new processes and add processes that were built by the vendor at no additional cost. And he said, I don't feel like we're really, other companies I've been at that have used this, I don't think we're using a lot of the capabilities of it. And there's nothing wrong with that on its face. It's the level of maturity that our PMO is at, that our project process is at. Is there a better way to do this that one is going to conserve, spend, and give us the outcomes? This is the key, right? That you were talking about, the outcomes that we desire. If even for, say, a few years, and then we mature, and we've matured beyond this, and we need to move to a purpose-built tool. There's no one right answer ever. It's always situational and organizational.
Yeah, and it's
Where is
always
that
constantly
organization at?
evolving, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's constantly evolving as your organization evolves. It's a living, breathing thing. What you need today may not be what you need tomorrow, and you can never predict what those needs are. I mean, just look at the COVID pandemic and how that completely changed the landscape of business. Um, and so you got to assess what you need now. You got to assess what your short-term goals are, and you have to look at solutions and technology that's going to support that process leg within your organization. And do I buy an all-in-one that has everything as part of it, or do I buy an ITSM platform and purpose-built software? And that really comes back to where's our maturity? Where are we at? How much are we going to utilize of the purpose-built software? If we're only using 20% of the purpose-built software, maybe this all-in-one or this extension to this platform is more than enough to handle what it is that we're trying to accomplish right now. And what's the ROI look like? And those are the things you sort of have to look at. So when buying for the future and things to consider, you need to consider those items. A lot of people will buy something and will say, oh, it has all these things. And they're wowed by the fact that this platform has all these process areas, some of which your company doesn't even leverage. Like, we don't do problem management, or we don't do, whatever that process looks like. And then you say, well, maybe eventually we'll grow into it. And that's great, but you haven't grown into it yet. It's not on your roadmap to grow into it. So you got to take that a critical eye at looking at that and not get drawn into the sales component to it, and say, is it going to meet my current needs and my perceived short-term future needs, and then constantly evolve that as you're going forward.
Well, I always like going to car analogies, right? Um, and I think back to a number of years ago, you could, if you bought a particular model with a particular trim package, there were AC plugs in the back of the car, right? In the cargo compartment. But you paid a pretty penny to have that capability. So you had to ask yourself the question, well, if I'm going to pay that money, am I going to use them? Right? Is that
Exactly. Am I
something?
going to
Is that
use it?
is that
Yeah.
something that I want? Now, I think about my wife's car, right? We bought the car for a whole bunch of other reasons. And in the particular trim package she has, there is an AC outlet that's in between the back seats on the console. Now, I said, oh, that's kind of cool. I think it's been used exactly once since we've owned the car. Um, but we didn't pay extra for that to get a capability that we clearly have not used.
Clearly.
I could imagine in my mind use cases, but those use cases haven't really, really materialized. So you have to consider that, but it kind of goes back to it's always going back to basics, right?
Yep.
Can we define what our process is? Can we define the things that we do? And then how does that match up with what the capabilities are, say in something that can be part of our core platform, or that would be more purpose built in something that we purchase and potentially even integrate to the platform? Or is there a hybrid of the two? There's a lot of different permutations that are there, but it's never a slam dunk. Hey, here's what we do, and here's
Yeah.
why we do it. You have to be willing to take that critical eye and evaluate and understand what it is you're doing and why we're doing it. And you also have other considerations. You have to think about licensing models as well,
Oh my
right?
goodness. Yeah.
Some
Yeah. Because
platforms it's
some
not
platforms are
included.
one license, you get everything, and other platforms are only pay for what you use. And you need to balance that out because in some cases, pay for what you use, when you add that extra module, it might, when you start to add up all your costs, it might actually be cheaper for you to get an ITSM tool, get a best in breed solution in that area that you're looking for. That might actually be cheaper. So when you're assessing costs, when you're looking at the different license models, you really need to take a real hard look at, is what they're offering by adding that module and the cost associated with it going to meet my needs and my short-term needs? And compare it to purpose-built software, because you might be surprised. You might find that purpose-built software is more cost-effective and you get more for your money. So those are the things you have to balance out. And most companies get sucked into the whole one license for everything. Oh, look at all of what I get. I'm getting the best bang for my buck. But the one thing that most customers don't do is they get shocked, like, wow, I get all of this for this price. And the problem with it is that if you're only going to use 30, maybe if you're lucky, 40% of all of this, then is it really the best bang for your buck? Or is it better to buy the core pieces you need? And how does that weigh out from a costing perspective? So you have to take all those into consideration when you're evaluating platforms and what's right for your organization.
Well, and as part of that evaluation process, and we go through this when we've worked with customers going through evaluations, you have to also understand and make sure you've covered the gotchas. There are your tool sets out there. Then there's hundreds and hundreds of these tools that are out there where, okay, you get all this core stuff, and then if you want to add this, it's only another $5 a user a month. Oh, okay, that's not a budget killer. Oh, but in order to use the $5 thing a month, you got to also buy this $25 thing a month or a server component in order for it to actually work. So you got to be able to be very clear-eyed and understand what are all of the pieces that go in. And so many of the vendors, their licensing processes and schemes are complicated. And for many of them, they were super simple when they started, and they become complicated over time. I'm not picking on the
Especially
vendors.
with ESM coming in and having
Mm-hmm.
all these different areas. But going back to your car analogy, this is a perfect example. I want heated seats. Oh, you can have heated seats, but you have to buy that trim package, which gives you not just heated seats, but it gives you this and this and this and this. And so in order to get what you want, you're forced to buy all the other stuff that goes with it, right? So
Yep.
they do that. They dangle the carrot kind of thing. You just need to be smart about it. I mean, look at what the best bang for your buck is. Look at your ROI. Do consider your future. But if anything is we've learned from COVID is that the one thing that is ever changing is what that future looks like. And as your business shifts, lots of things can happen that take you in a completely different direction. So consider your future, your short-term future and your needs, but don't bet the house on it, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and with a myriad of options that are available in any one particular area, we see all the time a tool that a customer is using, and we even say, "Well, that's kind of cool. Look at that. Yeah, that's pretty simple."
Yeah, definitely.
In fact, on a recent a current project we're doing, one of our clients is using a separate purpose-built project tool, but it's a project tool that has both, the average customer that's somewhat mature is probably going to use about 80 to 90% of what's in there, because they've left out all the extra stuff that most people don't use. So it's not going to fit everyone. And certainly if you're low maturity, it probably may be overkill. There may be a open source tool that'll get you what you need, or what's built into your IT service management platform is more than enough for what your process is. So it's just taking a critical look at it. We get asked that question, do I do ESM? Do I not do ESM? Well, there's no one answer. Let's talk about what your needs and requirements are, and then we could give you can certainly draw your own conclusions based on what the features and functions are for that particular area.
Because that's where BRD documents come in. A lot of people jump the gun when they go looking for these things. They don't sit down and do a real critical assessment of their business, what their real needs are. We have seen this time and time again in the market where customers are looking for solutions and they're saying, we want AI and we want this feature and this feature because it's the hottest thing. It's in the hype cycle. It's what everyone's doing right now. It's where all the marketing is driving. Hey, look at our solution. We have this AI and this intelligence and this capability. The problem with it is you're in the hype and you're buying based on the hype and you're not buying based on your need. And you need to take a critical look at your actual need, setting all the noise aside for a moment and actually say, is the solution that we're looking for going to meet these needs and what our very short-term future needs are in terms of our organization and the direction we want to go in? And is that a yes or no? And don't get drawn into it'd be really cool because you can do this AI or that AI, et cetera, because that's the big hot term right now, right? AI everything, right?
Or bots.
Machine learning.
I want a bot
bots.
to do everything.
Yeah, a bot to do everything. We want them to replace our service desk and everything is done automated. We don't ever have to talk to a customer. We're way far off from that. But the point being is, look at what your current needs are. Look at what you potentially want to look at. But be aware of the hype cycle. But put your efforts into what's most important, and that is what your needs are as an organization.
Absolutely. Well, Rob, as always, it's a pleasure getting together and chatting on these topics and sharing them with our viewers. Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure, Mike, and I'm looking forward to many more of these conversations.
Absolutely. Hit us up here at Excalibur Data Systems. We'd love to chat with you about your needs and how you piece these things apart. And we'll see you all soon on a future episode of Slaying Dragons. Take care, everyone.